Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and today we delve into the remarkable journey of Kate Bright, the founder of Umbra International, a pioneering company that provides holistic, secure lifestyle services for high net worth individuals. And from its inception in 2015, Umbra has achieved steady growth by addressing physical, digital, reputational, and emotional risks for its clientele. And today, Kate shares her unconventional path to success, the challenges of scaling a values-driven company, and her leadership evolution in creating an inspiring work environment. And she also offers invaluable tips for managing stress and maintaining resilience in high-stakes situations. So make sure that you enjoy this episode. Don't miss any future episodes by subscribing to ScaleUp Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. You can nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting story like Kate, and you can find out how in the show notes below. So for now, join Kate and I for a fascinating conversation filled with insights on entrepreneurship, growth, and the art of secure living. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by Kate Bright, who is the founder and CEO of Umbra International. So Kate, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. So I'm really looking forward to this. There's not much of a clue in the name, although maybe there is. Umbra, what's Umbra all about?
So, the word Umbra is the Latin for shadow, shade, protection. And I guess that ties in neatly with the services of the business. So we work with private clients, so high profile, high net worth individuals for whom they want to look at their secure lifestyles, so their security end to end holistically, and the strategy that sits behind that safety and security. So we're a UK-based business and growing rather rapidly since our launch in 2015 or 2018, because I think that's There's always now when I speak to other founder CEOs, there's always a date when you thought about it, a date when you set it up, a date when you incorporated it. And I quite enjoy that conversation with other founders at the moment as we go into our scale up phase. So, yeah. Okay.
So, and what sort of stage, you say you're in the scale up stage, you know, what does that mean to you? Can you give us a picture as to where you are on the scale up journey?
Well, I think as a founder, you always do tend to feel like you are always permanently in startup mode. And I think any founder who's gone through years 1 to 5 touching any part of the pandemic, I think they'll relate to the fact that if there was a business that was set up with enough time frame before the pandemic that's still serving their clients in exactly the same way, then I'll eat my hat.
Yeah.
And I think definitely for us, the pandemic was an experience like no other, where we could really understand what our clients needed from us. And I think any business in security, and certainly our secure lifestyle concept, that wasn't able to show its worth during a time of huge change and in, for some cases, crisis management. I think that, they perhaps missed a trick, but we definitely doubled down on our growth during that time. We've had a steady growth trajectory from the 2015 and 2018 when we sort of say we incorporated and started the business, but essentially it's leveraging my 26 years of client-facing experience. So I feel like some days depending on the day you get me on, it feels like 2+ decades, and other times I still refer to it as a startup. But I guess now the metric that I use is that we've had 5+ years of steady growth. We're a zero debt business and a business that's growing organically, which again, now being part of other founder communities where there are the discussions around funding and investment. It's been quite an interesting journey doing it without any external support and any external capital, which it's had its challenges for sure. And I definitely, as an Irish, Bavarian, Danish, English workhorse, I can say I've done it the hard way. Well, actually, no, that said, I wouldn't want to be other founder friends going into pitch for funding, because that just looks more terrifying than raising a business from the ground with my bare hands, quite frankly. But maybe one day I'll get that experience of the sort of Dragon's Den style. But we're a very small team, core team, and I think the key thing where I love talking about my own sort of skills and my own limit and where we've reached this scale up moment is that I think there's a real process you have to go through as a founder CEO, because you're what I call a have a go CEO. You know, you haven't necessarily gone through a corporate career pathway like I haven't. And for us, we're a service business, and we're also working in a sector where we're slightly disruptive. So all of those factors combined mean we've got a pretty tasty landscape to punch higher than our body weight. But also for me, I've had to be really, really low ego, high EQ and emotional quotient that I've had to apply to my own skills as to, am I the person to guide and lead and 2, 5, 10x us as a business? So it's a really, really interesting time for us as a business, because I feel like we have hit that as we would say, the scale up moment.
Okay.
And what that looks like now is making sure we're developing and empowering the team to grow and take over the reins going forward. And it's coincided with me reading the most incredible book that I highly recommend to anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. So whether you're doing it for yourself or doing it with others, is called The Founder's Dilemma.
Right. Yeah.
And it completely has kind of shot through my whole entire founder existence and given me the most amazing kind of kick up the whatsit to work out how and what and where forward. And it was actually recommended to me by another female founder in a pharma startup, ScaleUp now. And even things like the phrase partial founder buyout, you don't know what you don't know. And I think it's really interesting that when you start to grow as a business, that in the fortunate place that we are in, where we are growing organically, the power of not diluting your ownership and the power of actually making mistakes on your own watch, I hadn't realized the value of that. And so it's led to some really interesting discussions now around other entities and people that are interested in the business. And I'm actually more intrigued, including that of our own private security sector, because you imagine, I've come into the security sector as a woman who's non-military,
right,
who comes from the client background, and who's now a chartered security professional, still a close protection license holder now of over a decade. Was one of the only, I'm actually the first license holder, let alone female license holder, to sit on the security industry's regulator board.
Okay.
You couldn't write a business plan for this 26 years ago and say this is what's gonna happen, because we've not tried to be disruptive. I've just come at it from a very different standpoint. So we are known as a bit of a challenger in our sector. But interestingly enough, now our collaborations and our partnerships within our same industry mean that I think that's going to be one of the ways that we look to grow, not necessarily an M&A strategy, but certainly getting the Kate out of the way and putting her in a place that where she's most useful is definitely something that's on my radar. And the best advice I've had to do that from one of our advisors who's exited his security business is write your own job spec. One of the most incredible activities that I have done in the last 26 years, other than doing my close protection bodyguard training, of course, because you're basically writing your own, what you like doing, and then, deleting the bits that you don't really like, which is quite an interesting, I think it's a very, very good way of developing your skills, is to actually sit down and write the spec that you want. And for me, I love governance. I'm obsessed with scrutiny. I love risk hunting. Okay. I like relationships, people, creation, ideas, problem solving. And so it won't surprise you or my ops team to hear that I'm not very good on that operational side. So I've had to hire incredible people that have been able to grow in that respect. So yeah, I aim to sit on or around our board as chair, potentially. On the board is fine for me, and whatever time frame is also fine for me as we grow in this next part of the journey. But scale up also for me means a form of bereavement in a weird way, without getting too sort of into the emotion of it, I think it is important to acknowledge the emotions that are involved when you're going particularly through high growth, and how you have to retain a really steady hand on the tiller.
Okay.
I keep that Mark Twain, I think the If poem at both at my home desk and my office desk. If those around you lose their heads, keep that idea of just continuity in the crisis, and that clarity that you can sometimes lose when you're being asked to go and speak and you're being asked to go and meet, and a real sense of what's important to you has really helped during this more hairy part of the journey.
And I guess that Mark Twain quote, that must translate very much onto the ground as a close protection person. That's what you've got to do, isn't it, in a moment of crisis? Keep your head.
100%. The safe pair of hands, as I always say. And you're absolutely right. There's parallels between what we do as a business and the things and skills that I've learned. And again, remember, I'm not military. I'm not from a law enforcement background. I'm not from a traditional security management background. But I think, again, to sort of speak to those out there that want to sort of create something different or create something from their own experience, don't underestimate the power of your difference in setting up and growing a business, because you'll often find that those really nudgy, growy moments where they feel a little bit like a forced change, where, us humans are not designed for quick evolution. We're designed to kind of steady state. That's where some incredible things happen. That's when you chance take that meeting or bump into that person at Pret that you haven't seen for ages and that happens to have that skill that you so desperately need. It's certainly, it gets more and more interesting every day. I absolutely. I've got
hundreds of questions, and I know we're not going to get through them all in the time that I've got with you. But you mentioned you're not military, you're not come from that background. You said client services. So what was your background, and what got you into this? What made you want to set up a business in close protection security?
Sure. So I'll take you back to 97 was when I was going through my French degree at university, and I never really had a sort of career plan. And all those around me that wanted to be lawyers and doctors, I was always really jealous, because all I could muster up was that I wanted to work in London. And that didn't seem terribly satisfactory, not least of which to my machine tool engineering background father, who sort of said, you can have a thing, not a place. Yeah. But I left in 2001, and that was a time of real shift and change. I seemed to sort of specialize in coming into moments where things are just either going down the pan, or we'd survived the year 2000. We'd survived planes not falling out of the sky during the Millennium Eve. And suddenly we had the .com sort of moment where things were a little bit hairy, scary. And I was trying to get a grad training scheme, got rejected from every single one. And in those days before the internet, went round with a backpack and my A to Z hard copy, with copies of my CV in a clipboard, went round, I think it was Soho Square, where all the recruitment agencies seemed to be based at the time, having found that through the Yellow Pages. So for those out there that are digitally enabled, that was my experience of then. I think I got like one call back, and that was Pathfinders, the agency that gave me my first break as and I started my career as a PA. And just to clarify, and apologies for any former bosses listening, had no training, no skills really, other than the fact that I've been extensively spending time at Royal Holloway in the computer department for 4 years. So I could just about muster up, if someone spoke, I could kind of just tap it out and then, do the sort of the tweaking when the boss had left the room. But the sort of sting in the tail is my first job, my first day, the company that I joined was being bought by Disney. And so all the bigwigs from Disney, and I was just, it didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I was basically helping to set up what would have then been this acquisition to Disney, and met Michael Eisner on my first week of working.
Okay.
So I think it was written in the stars that I was going to be at the right hand of really interesting people, and from there I ended up working in what's called family office, which is a sort of a structure that our clients use to manage their lifestyle and sometimes investment. Right. And I rose through the ranks basically. So I created a bit of a network of other gatekeepers during my I call it my first career, just to sound fancy. And I ended up as a head of family office or chief of staff So I was the chief punch bag. I was the risk owner. I was hiring and firing the security teams if we had them, or the household staff teams.
Okay.
I was, pulling in our advisors. I was helping to sort of organize logistics. I was the one that was the chief project manager. And it was at the time when I was working for one of those families that I was offered the opportunity to do my close protection training, thinking I was going to come straight back in and use that experience still in the sort of operational side. But from the day one of doing the training, I knew that there was like not even a light bulb moment. It was like a fluorescent light bulb went off.
Okay.
I was just like, this is, I'd never done any kind of training. So again, my mates across the side of the legal, or, even my mates that went into finance, at least they had a kind of career pathway. As a PA, you're sort of doing it yourself. And luckily I spoke languages. So I was able to sort of, work with international families pretty decently. Okay. But suddenly I had this license that enabled me to understand why the teams I'd worked with over the years were so hot on the detail, and why security protocol is all about planning. And it gave me a whole new respect for, at that time, the physical security sector. And so I became operational and really enjoyed working with the sort of clients that I worked with as part of mixed gender teams, and providing a lot of the backstop support that I had provided as a PA, because I had this black book that nobody else had. So what I didn't have in terms of military experience, I was making up for in all the sort of what you would think of as the less important, but actually from a logistical point of view, the things that I'd been exposed to, even my planning ability, really came into its own. So, and then Umbra was born really from this idea that the phone started ringing. People wanted to book me as the female operator, but I couldn't cut myself into mini pieces. So Umbra originally was sort of from 2013 onwards was definitely the USP of, and that golden thread of me being a woman in the sector really shone through. And that idea of invisibility. Obviously, I had no idea the world of cyber and digital risk was going to be such a huge part of what we do as a business now. But invisible security really was my first experience of physical security. And then since then, the sector has really started to professionalize and formalize the accreditation. So I'm one of only 30 women that as a chartered security professional globally of 300 people. I'm one of only 6.88% of women that are close protection trained of the 16,000 in the UK. So I'm just used to being that one of only a few people in any room.
What's involved? I'm sure there are people listening like me that go, "Well, that sounds really, really exciting." What's involved in becoming getting a close protection license? What does the training involve?
So it's in my case, there's a certain. It's a bit like learning how to sail, or a certain amount of accredited hours of training that you have to do. So over the course of a 3-week period, there were various sort of training and planning exercises that we carried out as a cohort. I did it here in London. There was a first aid component as well. I always say, I think any human being, if they wanted to learn how to have the basic skills of a bodyguard, just get yourself first aid trained. All humans should be able to help other humans. It's just one of my big health and safety takeaways. And that was a big learning for me, because it's a real honor and privilege to be able to keep my skills active on the basis that you can ultimately save someone's life. The rest of the training, I think you'd be surprised at how much it is focused on plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, your ability to be calm under pressure, the softer skills, the understanding of the laws of the country. So, the right to arrest, the right to force. You don't want to be busting out the Krav Maga Israeli martial arts skills that I was learning on the side when your boss or your principal is left completely exposed. So this real shift in mindset around thinking that it was, why would I be useful? It was one of the things I said when I was first asked to do it. I was like, well, I grew up with brothers, so I know how to fight, but and it was like, no, this is not about that. This is the opposite of that. And there are 16,000 men and women who, quite frankly, a lot of them who I've worked with over the years, who are just incredible people with incredible communication skills as well. If you can't make yourself understood, you can't keep a client safe. possibly.
Yep.
Definitely, I've experienced that. So 3 weeks. The idea is that, you don't just go and do a course, get your badge, and then that's it. It's over a period of years, and you're refining your skills as you go. And I recently did my top-up training as well. So that was another 4 days. I went and did a refresher to make sure I kind of kept my skills active, because skills fade if you're not using your license on a daily basis. Although some would argue that when I go to events with clients, sometimes they're inviting me to go to things with them on the basis that they get a little extra support and guidance at those events than they would with somebody without a license. There are things that I'm able to help them to do that somebody without the training or the ability to think those few steps ahead, sit near the exits, make sure that you're in a place that has a fire safety protocols. But, I'm that nightmare person to go for dinner with a group of people, because, I always want to sit in a specific place because I want to see what's going on and, all that kind of stuff, as opposed to the hard skills. And I think that's the key thing about the training, is that I highly recommend it, as it gave me a career shift. It gave me the ability to be entrepreneurial, and it gave me the ability to set up ultimately a business, because I just suddenly had this, as I say, fluorescent light bulb moment.
Yeah. So how did you take that light bulb moment then and turn it into a business with commercial paying clients?
As an accidental entrepreneur, and I'm never, I never sort of had this bit out. The business set itself up. We are a business that clients didn't know they needed, and now they really can't do without us. We are that navigation across a sector that has 11,000 plus entities registered with risk or intelligence in the UK on Companies House today. So the sort of the business plan, if there was one, didn't exist when I set it up. The USP and the golden thread was that actually I wanted to first and foremost connect with other women in the industry. Okay. And that's really stood us in good stead, because we've had this sort of point of difference, I guess. Some of the first mandates that came across my desk were on the basis that I wasn't free to go and carry out those taskings. So I'd had to find somebody else in my female network. And then it grew to being asked to find male operators. And then it grew to being asked to come on site and look at physical security and infrastructure and homes and property. And then the advent of digital risk, looking at physical risk in isolation from digital risk, stuff's going to fall through the cracks. So we then started to kind of bring together a team of specialists. And then from there, the sort of holistic concept was born. I can't, Kevin, I can't sit here and say I had a quill pen in 2013 say, I know a private client is going to need navigation between a physical, digital, reputational, and emotional risks as a strategy that they'll pay for, and the output of which will be recruitment, advisory, and project management. And that's what it is today. That's the three ways we get paid today. But essentially, being a safe pair of hands is that kind of a thread. The business has evolved. We're not selling the same product that we were pre-pandemic in the sort of same way. Being a secure lifestyle brand has definitely been something that has come out of the fact that I speak a lot about what we do. It's very unusual in the security sector to have somebody so above the radar talking about everything other than the clients they work with, everything about being and feeling safe. This is why I was put on this earth, is to spread the knowledge, the understanding, and the toolkit really of bodyguarding and close protection. For me, it ended up me setting up a business, but my legacy hopefully will be that people who have worked with us and who have been part of our community and who are part of our Umbra community are able to access free tools daily. Our content schedule is jam-packed, full of ways that we can get information into the hands of those that need it most. 10% of our revenue last year came through our social media channels. Okay. Said no security business probably ever. We are investing in ways we can meet clients and community where they're at. And that definitely wasn't in the plan 10 years ago, because of that 10%, half came through LinkedIn, and LinkedIn wasn't invented 10 years ago. So yep. I've had to really tool up to understand that there's something in publicizing discretion, but there's also something in, I stepped outside of the industry norm in 2018 when I did a TED talk. I spoke about invisible security. I spoke about how my experience as a female bodyguard was one of a light bulb moment. And so the scene was set there and I couldn't go back in. The genie was out of the bottle.
Yeah.
So almost our comms strategy had to sit behind that. And the comms strategy, I would say, is part of the reason that I'm stood here today. I realized that I was going to have to practice what I preached and be a proper CEO, learn how to communicate. I can sell. That's not a problem. Can I build a team around me so that actually this isn't a founder-led business that, as we see with so many founder-led businesses, my mucky paw prints are all over it, and I'm not allowing it to actually scale. So with pride now that we are growing and scaling, I sit here and say to you, I think the biggest challenge for our business, forget pandemic, perma-crisis, geopolitical change, is me. I am the biggest pain for this business. And so I've spent the last 3-4 years making sure that I enable the business rather than disable it. And that, I think, has been one of the key factors in our growth.
What sort of things have you done to enable that?
Right from the personal development that I've had to do, the investment in my own physical, mental, and cognitive abilities. I'm lucky because we do have an emotional security pillar to the business, so I get to try out a lot of the things that I recommend to clients. And I'm not even joking when I say I think my background in spending a lot of time with elite people across military, law enforcement, government agency, sport, has really given me an edge in being able to be very self-aware, but also to learn about touching the edges of burnout. And I think, again, any founder that says they haven't been near it is lying. I would be lying if I said I hadn't touched the edges of it. But I've been given some great toolkits to enable me to not go into the full sort of meltdown mode when you get into the spiral and you can't pull yourself out, because I've got so many amazing people and toolkits around me.
So can I stop you there, actually? Because that's often, you spoke earlier about Mark Twain and about keeping calm in all these situations. That is often what separates people apart. And people I know from a military and a flying background, people say you lose 20 IQ points the moment you put your helmet on and get in the cockpit of the airplane, because the stress of the environment, everything else like that, your decision making becomes poorer. Have you got 1 or 2 tips maybe from that EQ toolkit that you're talking about that can help maybe founders like us that maybe every now and then are in one of those really high stress environments to maintain the clarity of their decision making?
Yeah, I have. I wrote a blog about emotional security where I gave every single bit of advice as to what I do on an almost daily basis, all the things that I have adopted over the years. So I'll send you that for the show notes. The easiest thing and the thing that legitimized this was hearing that the Navy SEALs use it, is my breath and box breathing.
Right.
I use that on an almost daily basis, not least of which I'm also a proud Oura ring wearer. And I think that this little Oura device that I wear on my finger has been a key part in understanding when I'm under stress, where I'm less resilient, and remember the causal link between emotional resilience and risk resilience. So if I can't practice what I preach, am I going to click on that link by mistake and compromise our data systems? Or am I going to perceive that risk when I'm on site doing a review in a different way because I'm slightly under par? I've got to know thyself, right? And as a founder, so important to know when you're even slightly off key, because you can then bring a colleague along or have something else amplify your advice or your demeanor. And particularly when you're the face of a business, my goodness, if you turn up looking knackered and unable to string a sentence together, then, it's game over. But I've written a whole blog around the fact that if I hadn't found some of the aspects of biohacking, not all of them, because I'm not a crazy sort of, I'm not taking it to that extreme. But yeah, I've invested in our people and gotten them into hyperbaric oxygen chambers when they've wanted to, and offered the team IV intravenous multivitamin infusions, and I can regularly be found, with my red light lamp and my light boxes, and grounding in the morning and going on my little walks. And so fully signed up member of that club. So
maybe tell us just quickly about the box breathing, because that's a technique that I think anybody can practice.
Sure.
Isn't it? So
really easy. So think of a box. So inhale for 4, hold the breath for 4. So inhale, hold, exhale for 4, hold again. And it's the holding the breath that stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the system that says you are not going to get eaten by a tiger anytime soon. Yep. So it's that hold bit. And if you really want to geek out, if you hold it longer, then you will kick in quicker. So in for 4, hold for 8, out for 4, hold for 8. But that's called the rectangle. It does not as good as box breathing. Rectangle breathing doesn't trip off the tongue. So yeah, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4.
That's interesting, because that delay, again, if you come back to other high stress environments like flying a plane, things like that, when you have an emergency, one of the things that is taught there is to pause. And there might be different strategies to pause. It might be running through some basic checks to do them, but they just give yourself that time to pause, reflect, and not make a snap decision that could be wrong. Allows you to just think a bit more, doesn't it? And okay, so that breathing is very, very good. And we've all had that situation where we're about to do a bit of public speaking or something, and we suddenly find that we're short of breath. So again, that's good. So what about the ring? I don't know about the ring.
So the Aura Ring ties in with my second top tip, which is invest in your sleep. So the Aura Ring is a device which is sort of microchipped. There's sort of lights and things on it. It sits very close to your skin on your middle or second finger.
Yeah.
And it was being trialed on, I think, NBA athletes just before the pandemic. And the guys and girls were getting pulled off when they had 0.1 degree body temperature rises, because that's a signal of infection. And they were able to initially use it to predict COVID, because that was one of the marker points. Pull them off, rehab them, make sure they didn't have or were susceptible to injury. I got the first edition and then the second generation. This is the third generation, one iteration of it now. It has helped me to take control of my health, but more importantly, the baseline of everything in physical, mental, cognitive performance is your sleep. And it's helped me to understand when I sleep best, how I sleep best. If I eat food after 6:37 at night, it's game over because I'm digesting instead of resting. I thought I was a bit of a Maggie Thatcher, and then I was a bit of a 5-6 hour girl. Turns out I'm not. I'm definitely an 8-hour person. It's definitely given me an edge to be able to deal with, I call them micro decisions, either the micro decisions or the mosquitoes. Either way, every day, there are things I have to decide and things I have to bat away. And with a great night's sleep, with a bad night's sleep, they equate it to you being drunk. So your brain waves will equate that of a drunk person.
Yeah.
Which I had to hear that a couple of times for it to sink in. But if you can make 1% better micro decisions and bat away 1% more mosquitoes every day, I'm down with that. That for me is a good day at the office. And remember, in our industry, micro decisions are little margins of error that we try not to sort of flirt around the edges of getting that wrong. And high EQ, the emotional capacity to actually read a room, read an individual, be able to be a risk hunter is so much more amplified when you've had a good night's sleep. And it's different for everybody. Everybody has a different start and end point. But when I then understood about the breakdown of sleep, the quality of it, so not just lying there in bed for 8 hours going, oh my God, this, I can't sleep. Actually understanding that there are different flows within those 6, 9, whatever hours that you can affect by getting sunlight first thing in the morning. Sunlight first thing in the morning for 20 minutes tells your ancient brain, in 12 hours time, I might be going back into my cave again.
Helps you with your circadian rhythm, doesn't it?
Right, exactly. So that's why I'm a little bit, I take the best of the biohacking and the longevity world, but also you can spend a lot of money on things that are just a big ball of, fun in the sky that you can go outside, and it doesn't have to be sunny to get sunlight. I think that was the other thing as well, because I was thinking, oh God, I live in, London. How am I going to get 20 minutes of anything in the morning other than rain? Actually, it's getting outside in that light. So, I think going back to your original question, the know thine self of getting a grip of your physical, mental, cognitive health, I would only add one more thing to that, which is I thought I could communicate until I had to start speaking. And then I started to do a lot more work on how I communicate, and I joined something called Toastmasters.
Okay. Yeah.
And that, coupled with just saying yes to things, has, like, this conversation, I will be more cognitively healthy from having it, because A, I'm interacting with you, and B, you're asking me questions about a business that obviously I know, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And we're connecting as two humans, albeit, remotely.
Yeah.
So develop and investing in, and there's a metric I've got for it, which is between 5 and 10% of profit or revenue, if you're feeling particularly generous.
Yes.
It's the best investment you will make, particularly as you go through these hairy, scary, scaly bits. Because if you can articulate what you want the business to look like, I got to a point where I was waiting for other people. And I said to one of my advisors, I was like, what next? He was like, well, what do you want next? So actually, if you can start to articulate and communicate in a way that you've never had to before, then that's a good investment. That's a good ROI from an investment, I think.
Interesting. There's all sorts of constraints, obviously, to scaling a business, but one of those is actually the confidence and ambition, desire of the business owner themselves. Once they get to a certain point, they started off and there was nothing to lose. When you started your business, really, there was no risk, really, in a way. It didn't matter if it failed. Now it would do, right? So if you're required to kind of push again or take investment or anything. So one of the things that we suggest people do is they go through the motions, even if they don't actually need to have an investor, but they go through the motions of preparing something and talking to people for the sort of reasons you've just said. Is it forces you to articulate it in a different way, and you're going to get some questions if you do actually talk to people. And even if you don't take any money, you've really benefited from that exercise.
And you know what I'd add to that? I think that is, if someone had said that to me, even 3 or 4, I had to come to it quite like everything I've done accidentally and laterally. But I would add to that key person risk insurance. When someone said that to me a couple of years ago, I said, oh, that sounds like a nice policy for someone. I was like, oh, and then benchmarking salary. Who are my key people? Am I a key person? Who else in the business is a key person? It has enabled us to also start thinking about things like a data room and having our documentation in order. We're a pretty organized business, and my right hand, Jess Rigby, makes sure we have everything in order. But actually a data room, let's pretend and hypothesize that we've got somebody lifting up the bonnet. What does that look like? And that, coupled with looking at key person risk insurance, I never normally would advocate insurance for insurance sake, but it was such a great exercise to benchmark my own salary. It coincided with me getting an award, Global Security CEO of the Year award from CEO Monthly.
I saw that.
Really happy about. But I thought to myself, goodness me, what would a global security CEO's salary look like? So I was, luckily enough, as being part of the chartered community, the security community, they're a pretty friendly bunch. And so I started to do, like I did in the gatekeeper community, a bit of a salary benchmark. And this time it wasn't to go to my boss to ask them for a pay rise. It was to be able to plug in some better numbers. And actually, even that exercise of working out, what if the under the bus scenario, who the hell is going to come in and manage this business unless they are earning what a global security CEO would earn? That then in turn made me write the job spec. That then in turn made me think, actually, this person here would be a great replacement for me. And even if nothing ever comes from that, I think there was a McKinsey article about CEO succession. It scared the living hell out of me. It sort of said 2 years for this and a year pre and a year of, and I thought, you know what, that is spot on. Yeah. And if you haven't identified who and what is that person coming in, if you haven't got out the way, also that's really important, because you don't want to put somebody off that's the perfect person and you're still there languishing around in the top spot, making moves about getting onto the board, where someone coming in is going, the last place I want this person is as a boss in governance. the combination of all those things. But that I'm going to take that away. That's a really great way of starting that conversation. And I wish I'd done it earlier. Like there's so many things I wish I'd done differently. But I think if I could say something to somebody on the start or in that journey, to invest in that. Imagine someone's coming in and looking at it, even the way you do your reporting, your end of year reporting. Imagine you're thinking about it in a different way. You might think about profit in a different way. You might think about multiples in a different way, and doing that with trusted people around you, and as a team building exercise. Also, I found that really
and being able to explain how somebody would get their money back if they invested in you. Because otherwise, what's really, unless we're simply doing a business because we are being altruistic and whatever, but most of us there wants to be a payout at some point. So if we can't articulate what that payout might be for somebody else investing, how can we articulate it for ourselves? So it's
right. And in the Founder's Dilemma, they talk about the two outcomes, the rich or king. And how there's very few people that have done rich and king. So like Bill Gates, Anita Roddick. Yeah. But actually thinking about also your happy number, that was something that came up in one of my bits of personal development in when I realized that actually the blend of monthly coaching and monthly therapy over some part of the pandemic was such a fantastic way to dig into my why and actually start to develop my value toolkit as well. I talk in toolkits a lot. You have to forgive me. I'm very visual, so I literally sometimes do drag things out of the grey matter. But that was definitely something that alongside these other aspects of my life was these light bulb moments upon light bulb moments that you never knew that you were going to need. It's only at those moments where you realize that the value of that sort of understanding your why, understanding your happy number. Your happy number, when you work with the sort of clients that I work with, it just gets smaller. And so don't tell that to potential, obviously, for anyone listening who wants to join the Team Umbra. But genuinely, I haven't set this up with an end goal in mind. So I'm in a more fortunate position, I think. I'm not affixed to I'm not attached to an outcome. I think I'm a really useful member of Umbra's board for a period of time. I think I can attract a lot of business being somewhere around it, but I'm certainly probably not integral to another shift. We're only one geopolitical evolution away from perhaps me being less relevant, or more strategic role actually is a better place for me. But if you have a sense of what you want to get out of a business, and if you have a sense of that happy number, and you really start with the help of some amazing people that have been helping me look at my own personal finances in a way that I would want my clients to have that kind of service. That's the other thing as well. It's always like, oh, no, clients are more important. Actually, no. What do I want the pensions to look like? Because then you can make strategic decisions tied back in with key person risk. Actually, we need to be perhaps overpaying or topping up pensions, or actually, for staff retention, shouldn't we not add to those packages? And what more can we do to retain Kate? Because Kate really wants to stay, but kind of give me a little bit of a better package while we're doing that global CEO salary benchmarking. So this whole process has made me actually value my own contribution in a way that is very kind of out of body, but has been a really, really useful exercise.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the risk thing, because it's that over-reliance on any one key individual, over-reliance on any one key customer as well is key in some businesses, and equally on any one supplier, because some of us have strategic suppliers that we become very reliant on. So managing risk is a combination of all of those three things, isn't it? Which is great. So we're coming towards the end, and I, as I said, I could keep asking you questions forever. It's
we'll have to do a round two sometime.
Yeah. So ostensibly, it appears that you've got a people-oriented business. It's about people, and you've talked about you being maybe a rate-limiting step to. But what else is? How can you scale this business? How can you 10x the business then? What's the constraints?
So. The constraints, I am the person getting in the way. I think I can't stress enough when you realize you're a have-a-go CEO, and that's with respect to other founders that find themselves in similar situations that may have really gone off to the races with this role. I've worked with CEOs. I know what a CEO looks like, and I'm not one, and proudly so. My spec says it. My spec is I'm much more useful where I've got people around me with better skills. So my strategy in the last 4 years has been to find more exceptional people. And I've always said, Kevin, that in this age of technology advancing, humans will have to become more exceptional.
Yeah.
Someone that relies on their physical security strategy and doesn't look at their digital one is not looking at it in a holistic way. Same with the skills and the people in our business. The way this business will grow is if we are able to build a team of risk hunters that all come from different backgrounds, different mindsets, and are able to be adaptable, to be flexible, and to be high performance in their own way. And so we're going through a process at the moment of a combination of things like Hogan's and a few other tools to help each individual have their own performance development plan. I'm really into I said intrapreneur earlier. My success genuinely is linked to anyone that's been part and is part of Team Umbra going off and doing exceptional things, hopefully within Team Umbra or an associated sort of, not an associated business. No, I don't want them going off. There's no competitors though. That's good. Not one good thing. My success will be that I've managed to grow a business where the people are so inspired by what we do and want to continue that whole legacy of both delivering really high quality, secure lifestyle navigation for private clients, but also making the world a safer place. And so one thing I think would be a failure from my point of view is if I set this business off on its next sort of tack of the sailing trajectory, that core essence isn't retained, because then we just become a secure lifestyle navigator, and all of these innovations and things we built into the business and the Umbra way and the difference with which we, anytime anyone sees something great on LinkedIn or out there as to how a employment package gets put together, whether it's salary sacrifices for nursery benefits, whether it's your day off on your birthday, or actually come into the office on your birthday because everyone gets cake. So that's a winner. It gets added in and we rewrite our contracts on a really, really regular basis. And I like to think that the next stage, the success will be that I'm listening to those people and not just putting those people in to sit there and have great backgrounds and CVs and all the rest of it, that they can actually be free to deliver and tweak and hone and adapt a strategy in our 4-year plan now that is fit for purpose and that can actually at this size now be agile enough for any other entity coming in to say, you know what, let's double down on this, or actually let's create different entities that all kind of coexist together. And so I think we don't need money for certain aspects of what we do to amplify and to, I think raise the profile or enable us to attract probably the CEO talent that we need. That's probably where a good sort of logical spend would be at this stage. But not even if somebody is coming in with their own client book, particularly in our service sector, that negates the need almost. We're creating an environment where people actually want to come and work, which is just, a really, it's one of my proudest achievements is to create something that, I worked in really quite, I worked in the noughties and the tens. There wasn't flexible working. There wasn't any of the stuff that we do now as a team, like Team Umbra. So, I want to create that will be a good success point for us. And we're not fixed to any particular outcome, but I think if I can help us to continue to invest in really amazing people, then my own skills, my own exit path, I think will be really, really clear, and making sure I'm listening as well as delivering in this phase is really important. So I don't miss and I'm tone deaf to things that I'm just getting in the way around. And my team will be listening to this thinking, oh my God, she's going, not going anywhere. But I think it's only ever people that enable you to scale an idea, a service, a business to the place where you want it to go. And it's only ever been the right people at the right time that I've met, both as suppliers, as team, as clients, that have got it this far. So I have a real faith that we're on the right track.
Brilliant, fantastic, and that's a great place to leave it. You've described the legacy essentially. Got time for one or two quick fire questions?
Sure.
So if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
When in hell, keep going.
Okay, fair enough. Which
actually Churchill, but
it was Churchill. Yeah, I think I mentioned that in a discussion earlier on today, actually, with somebody else. It's weird how that happens. You've already mentioned the Founder's Dilemma. Any other books or podcasts or resources that you'd highlight for other people?
Yeah. So an amazing woman called Dame Stephanie Shirley, who is a huge inspiration. I get goosebumps every time I talk about her autobiography, Let It Go, essential reading. I gift it quite a lot to people within and outside the business. It's the only book that's actually made me very emotional in several parts. You can read it on many levels, but if you read it from a business perspective, it's one woman who created a business that ended up having women working from home during a time when women were not allowed to have their own bank accounts without a signatory of their husband. She produced the software for the Concourse Black Box. She then sold that business, creating 70 millionaires, herself having a huge liquidity event, and she's giving it all away in her own lifetime to end a particular issue that I won't give away because I think it's really important to her journey that people find that out during the latter page.
And that answers another question, which is who's had the most influence on you, perhaps, as a business leader? It might be her.
Parents and Dame Stephanie Shirley. But my parents are, I am everything, but literally because of them, but also their support in kicking me off with this business journey. I simply wouldn't be here without them.
All right, brilliant. Any apps or bits of software that you'd highlight for other people?
I go to sleep every night, either with the Calm app or an app called Breathy, sleep hypnotherapy. He speaks for about 3 sentences and I'm asleep every time. My Aura app.
Brilliant. Good. And I normally ask what are people's favorite or most successful marketing tactic. I mean, I'm imagining with your world, it's referrals, is it? Would I be?
Everything's word of mouth, but I think that our difference has been that I have been able to, through sheer luck of being in the era of the ease of social media, that I've stuck my neck out and been the visible part of it, the invisible security. I think the personal branding that I've and had significant help, and also there's been right place, right time. I think that's given us, that's a point of difference. The Kate Bright to the Umbra shade. That's always how I sort of describe it.
Nice, very nice, great point to end on. If people would like to find out more about the Kate Bright or the shading Umbra, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn, Kate Bright, or umbrainternational.com. We're everywhere.
Brilliant, that's super. Kate Bright, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.